Man, it's weird. Where does the time go? Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and as always guys, I'm Andrew, and today I've got my favorite books of Q1 2022. Just like that, the first quarter of the year is gone. But before we get into this video, make sure you're liking and subscribing, hitting that bell notification so you can get regular updates for when I put out new content. Also, make sure you're checking that description box down below for the link to the Wizardly Duo Discord, as well as links to all my social media and information about my Patreon. And that said, guys, I've had a very heavy first quarter. I think I read around 60 books in just the last 3 months, which is absolute insanity. But it's been some really great reading. I actually struggled here a little bit to pick series without repeat authors, because 2 of the authors on here could have easily had repeats, and I would have not felt guilty about it at all. But I restrained myself. I held myself to the rules. No rereads, and no repeat authors, as much as that pains me. With that, I do have one small caveat. I do have an honorable mention, which is a reread, but it's been a decade and a half, which is the only reason I'm including it on the list. Plus, on top of the fact, I had this listed on Goodreads as 3 stars, and I don't know what I was thinking. That's Stephen King's Drawing of the Three, the second book in the Dark Tower. I don't know why I had this listed at 3 stars on Goodreads. I don't know what I was thinking, but that went from a 3-star to a 5-star rating during this reread. It is so awesome to be finally back into the Dark Tower, and I guess maybe I'm just more grown up and I'm paying better attention. I don't know what happened, but that Goodreads rating was just all kinds of wrong. So honorable mention, the Drawing of the Three, so good. It's weird, but it's good weird. Alright, so starting off this list, pretty much everything here is 4.5 to 5 stars. And I just love all of these books. Starting it off, let's start with some David Gemmell. This is Quest for Lost Heroes. This is chronologically, I have no clue. Publication order, though, it's the 4th book released. And one of the cool things about the Drenai series is starting with Legend and then making your way through the series with Waylander and King Beyond the Gate and things of that nature. You can really see him progress and get better as an author. And it all just came together here in Quest for Lost Heroes. This heroic fantasy tale is just something incredibly special. And he pulls it off in 300 pages, which is something super special because it proves that fantasy books don't have to be 700 to 1,000 pages to tell a good story. So yes, the 4th, I'm going to air quotes that depending on how you count it, the 4th Drenai book, Quest for Lost Heroes by David Gemmell, was an absolute gem. These can all kind of be read kind of standalone-ishly, but yeah, or I guess you could read them in chronological publication. I'm doing publication order because I'm crazy. And then that good old Psy King had to make a second appearance because I read 11/22/63, and this is just such an interesting take. It's a time travel thriller, but it just works. It's got some great multiverse connections. We visit Derry, Maine. It's, the pure fact that this book is even half as good as it is, it takes all those conspiracy theories, boils it down, and tells a compelling story with a lot of heart. I was truly shocked, because when it starts out, I'm oh, this is kind of weird. Just the circumstances are odd, the way the story happens is kind of odd, but then, he wraps it up super well. The people who say Stephen King can't tell a good story with a strong ending, 11/22/63 has got that in spades. It's a long book. Don't let this edition, for some reason, my hardcover is this weird edition where it's not 2 inches thick, so I think they just used a finer paper on this printing. But, yeah, no, usually I see them, they're this thick. So don't let this fool you. This is a long book, but it is well worth it. Alright, so that's 2 books down. And then coming in at number 3 is Michael R. Fletcher. She Dreams in Blood, Blackstone Heart, and An End to Sorrow. The Obsidian Path trilogy. Specifically, we are talking about the first book here, though, Blackstone Heart. I loved everything about this. It's so compelling. Like, it's got... I mean, this is also a really short book, and I love a good fantasy tale that can tell a compelling story in just a few hundred pages. And what's really great about this is, look at that. That is formatted very generously. So it's this thick, and it's formatted very generously. This is a short book, but it's got such deep themes on morality and sense of self and what it means to be either good or evil. And does intention matter? And also shines a light on, like, toxic relationships. This is a very, very dark, very messed up series, but at the same time, it touches on a lot of important points that I think are fantastic. If you have not checked out Obsidian Path, Into Sorrow, which I have read, I got an e-arc of that, comes out, I believe, in May, and oh my god, like, this entire series is a beautiful train wreck masterpiece, and it is gorgeous to just watch it happen. So, yes, we have got Blackstone Heart right there. Then, surprising nobody. Well, you know what? I've got 2 copies of this book. I loved it so much, I bought it twice. Well, I got it twice. I bought it once, and I got it twice. Thank you to everybody who sent me this edition. We're going to talk about Raymond E. Feist, Magician. This is the first 2 books in the Rift War saga. Guys, this is just fantastic traditional fantasy. It definitely deserves to be in the conversation with Tolkien, with A Song of Ice and Fire, Wheel of Time, Shannara, all of those giant, great big titans of, like, traditional fantasy. It's there, and I just don't hear enough people talk about it. And it was funny, at time of recording, I talked with Mike from Mike's Book Reviews on a Talk About Nothing, and Feist came up, and the comments just filled up with love for this series, and I can see why. It is a fantastic book. It's a portal fantasy, but it's like fantasy world to fantasy world portal, and then it's got war elements. It's got some non-traditional tropes that, like, you typically don't see, because usually in traditional fantasy you get your titular hero and then you follow that person until the end of the story, and Magician doesn't do that, so it's really, really interesting to experience. Next up, Joe Abercrombie. I know, shocking, a Joe Abercrombie makes the list. Red Country is fantastic. This is like a industrial revolution, medieval western sort of mashup. It revisits some classic kind of initial trilogy characters. It's got some good themes. I mean, Swords at Dawn. I loved pretty much everything about Red Country. You either love it or you hate it. For me, I love this book. This is the first law book that I gave 5 stars to and really invigorated me on this series. So yes, I have got nothing but deep, deep love for this. Next up, we've got Daniel Abraham with the Long Price Quartet. And this is a bind-up, so it's kind of cheating. Do I want to do an Autumn War or Price of Spring? I don't know. It's hard to choose a favorite between the two. Honestly, I like the way Price of Spring. So, we're going to go Price of Spring in this bind-up. Guys, if you haven't read Long Price Quartet, the entire series is a masterpiece. My buddy Alan has gone on record with saying that Daniel Abraham planned everything from the first page to the last page of this quartet. And it shows. The masterpieces and the Rube Goldberg and the tiny intricacies and the small events that have massive payoffs, that tiny little butterfly effect thing where, like, you just set something in motion and it'll just blow up in somebody's face. It is so darn good. I cannot stress this enough. Please, if you can get your hands on the Long Price Quartet, do yourself a favor and read it. It is just character-driven fantasy at its best. And then I have got a very strong fantasy debut to talk about from Tiago Abdallah. This is A Touch of Light, Book 1 in the Ashes of Avarin. This series is going... I'm going to be watching this very, very closely because the first book is out. Tiago says that the next 3 books are going to be out in the next, 2 years. And, again, a short book. Compelling fantasy story. Most of these books are a reasonable length. Now, Magician isn't a reasonable length. That one is very, very long. But, I mean, most of the books on this video are going to be a reasonable length. I mean, the next two are kind of longish, but this one, it's got just compelling religious themes. It's got compelling fantastical elements. It's got compelling political just aspirations, and the way everything just kind of comes together in this story is just so interesting, because I don't know where this series is going, but if it's going anywhere as good as the first book was, it's gonna be explosively good. Tiago Abdallah is one to watch. You need to keep your eyes peeled on this series, because, I mean, it was something special, guys. Like, I don't want to ruin it to you, but it's got Griffin magic. And actually, the next one's got Griffin magic, too. This quarter, I loved Griffins, but, like, the Griffin magic in here is just so cool. The way it all works. The madness in this series is... I'm doing a bad job describing it, but it was just so good. Speaking of Griffins, we've got The Iron Crown by L.L. McCree. This is book 1, I believe, in The Iron Crown, I think is what the actual name of the series. Or no, this is the Dragon Spirits. This is Dragon Spirits, and I loved everything about this book. It was one of those ones where it's got high stakes, but at the same time, like, it focuses in on those character relationships. And it just feels like a warm hug, because it's good to see in relationships and fantasy when it's realistic. Like, you know, nobody's perfect, and these characters are flawed, but the partners that they have chosen just build each other up and reinforce the weak points of their partners. And that is the way it's supposed to be! And guys, I just love it so much. The magic system is nature-based. It's cool. The dragons are just awesome. The way the priests work, the magical enemies, the character interactions. I could go on. I've done a dedicated review for it. I love this one. I actually have done a dedicated review for quite a few of these. And then last, but certainly not least, we've got Howling Dark by Christopher Rocchio. And I wanted to hold up Demon in White too, but like, coming off of Empire of Silence, which I liked, I think I gave it 4 stars. Howling Dark was something completely on another level. It blew my mind. And this was a book I soft DNF'd, because the author does this kind of quick bait and switch time jump thing where you're like, no, I want to pick up at the end of book 1. And then you're like, oh, I see what you did. That was cool. I see what you've done, Christopher Rocchio. But man, I enjoyed it. Like, this book pays off, and it slaps. Guys, it's so good. If you were into sci-fantasy, and if you love Dune, if you love Red Rising, if you love Realm of the Elderlings, like, there is just so much that Christopher Rocchio has pulled from and then made it his own thing. If you like Name of the Wind, if you love beautiful prose, I will put it here now on camera that Christopher Rocchio is up there with Patrick Rothfuss when it comes to prose. Guys, Christopher Rocchio he's gonna be one of the best of our generation. I will be reading this man's books pretty much until he proves me wrong. That said, guys, that is the 10 books that I loved the most in the first quarter of 2022. There were a couple that I almost threw in here and I realized they were in the second quarter, and that made me sad. But, of course, that one will be out after the second quarter is done. So let me know in the comments down below what some of your favorites of the first quarter were. I would love to know, because who doesn't like good book recommendations? But that said, guys, that's all I've got for you. So till next time, peace out, stay magical, bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons.